At the end of November, the Great Hydrated One aims to shower us once again with his unforeseen grace. Mostly, those who delve into unwelcoming caves, wastes and raid groups will feel at home with new patch, but not only them. Elementalist mains have nothing to cry about. First time seems perhaps Stone Age. Early Magic Stick gets few small numeric buffs for PvP and some interesting changes, like the hot thing now tracking targets. Besides that, few traits get buffed, few got nerfed, and the change everyone asked for, aka Catalyst's balls now becoming AoE instead of projectile, finally went through. NG mains
Activating hard light emitter.
are currently installing flashlights into their eye sockets after it was announced that Holo Smith gets extra damage across the board. New Holo unlocks new ways of one-shotting you and hopefully ability to be viable in raids by the principle of setting himself on fire, which grants him a seat in Ignoring Fire Safety Regulations Club next to Berserker. Crapper and core changes aren't that interesting. Scrap gets 2 cooldown buffs and small damage buff in PvP, and Rifle Skill 1 gets changed again. Wording here is slightly scuffed, but from what I understand, Rifle will fire now 2 bullets in time it used to fire 3. That paired with change to inheritance laws regarding distance from which only friend mech players can have gets the stats that will force Power Mechanics players to at least maintain line of sight with their computer while stomping raids and ranks. Guardian finally has been looked at with a critical eye, and therefore Firebrand is being reworked, making him bearable and seemingly fair to compete against. Now do the other 3. Firebrand's library has now limitations on how many bookshelves he can instantly throw at his problems. Now his pages are a shared resource that restores over time just like Initiative does, so he can't dump whole 3 of them as form of coping mechanism. However, cooldowns on tome equips are also gone. Good. That makes me consider dusting off the Guardian art. Other Guardian changes are PvE exclusive, and are all buffs, with exceptions of Hunter's Ward getting the duration of Fuck You reduced in World v World. Unfortunately, Guardian balance chart still applies to PvP. On to the Mesmer changes. It appears that giving more bullcrap to the class balanced around bullcrap leads to unforeseen results, and therefore Continuum Split duration gets reduced in PvP. It's still far from making Chrono bearable to play against, and I'm certain we should reconsider putting AoE hard crowd control in the game in such quantities, but that's a step in the right direction. PvE Mesmer gets more damage on some skills, and Mirage has to now consciously choose to upkeep Alacrity instead of doing it by the virtue of existing. Necromancer says no to boons in PvP, with the power of Corrupt Boon being reverted to the big fuck off button it used to be before gaining ammo stacks. That, with buffs to 2 signets and change to spectral armor, are all PvP changes Necro receives. Certain Reaper Shroud and Greatsword skills have significantly increased damage in PvE, so maybe you will finally can beat Doom while cosplaying him. Scourge, on the other hand, gets his boons out of ass neutered in World v World. Now you will have to invest into boons to be a boon support. Revenant receives similar treatment to all of the above, multiple PvE buffs to Power Herald and Vindicator, and in PvP Vindicator's Nomad Advance has its damage reduced. It was 2.3 power ratio, just 0.37 less than his Bloody Elite, and now it's going to be 2.1 power ratio. On a skill with 3 seconds long cooldown. Revenant is a prime example to why game companies should do mandatory drag tests. You tell me that a gap closer on a 3 seconds cooldown should crit for... So that's why Vindex nukes everyone with 3 buttons. Thank you, Ainet, I'm very grateful. Same with Thief. PvE buffs I'm down with. However, I can't understand the concept of buffing Deadeye. It's already a nightmare to face a Deadeye who knows what he is doing, and I, as a main of only class without instant unstoppable gap closer completely bypassing verticality, I'm more than skeptical about any Deadeye change that might make it popular. Now, on to the important stuff. Druid and Hammer Untamed, aka Rangers only specs that deserve to exist, have received PvP and World v World changes. I'm looking forward to never see Longbow Greatsword Soul Beast ever again. On top of that, multiple skills have received the always applies their bonus effects against defiant foes. That means skills that depend on disabling the enemy to unlock their full damage output now have been collectively buffed. And if you watched any of my previous videos, you probably know what's already coming. Hammer Warrior and his little cousin, sharing a skin condition with his ferret, both had their damage output crippled by the simple fact that Deimos can balance on his wheelie and therefore isn't considered disabled when you shoulder check his kneecaps out of existence. With that change, Deimos' drunk party trick becomes obsolete, and now I can finally crush his kneecaps like the god intended. With Merciless Hammer being applied to all hammer and mace skills, Banner of Tactics gaining a stun break, and both important elite specs gaining minor buffs on top of that, we can now start to get excited. Crabface out!